Hi everyone, and welcome to Talos 360's first social sit-down. It's going to be the first of a few episodes, really. We want to carry this on where we're going to sit down and go through hot topics in the world of recruitment. What we want to do is sit down and find out what's going on, in your world, what we're hearing from other customers, what, are the hot topics and what are the areas that people are looking for improvement on. So, my name's Tim. I work here at Talos 360 as a business development manager. I'm joined by my colleague Matt. Matt, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Matt Walker, one of the business development managers alongside yourself. I've been working with in-house HR departments now for in excess of a decade. So we've seen it all, haven't we?
Yeah.
COVID, cost of living, last 4 years or so.
Plenty of change.
Yeah, there'll be lots to discuss today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And before we, move into the main video, as I said, this is the first of many, and we want to, try and spread the word. So please like, subscribe, and share the video amongst your peers. Networking is the best way to share it, and hopefully we can try and help some of those out then. I think to jump straight into it with the first step, planning. Now, planning your recruitment plan or your recruitment process is going to be the first area that some people tend to skip. People just jump straight into it.
Absolutely.
And I think to plan and make sure you know what you're about to do is the first step in a successful process.
Okay, so I think when you're planning recruitment, you've almost kind of got to think from the outset and think, okay, well, what's the overall plan for recruitment? If we do need to recruit, do we have a process?
Yeah.
And what does that look like? You may know it because you're lead HR or your lead recruiter, but does the rest of the organisation follow suit? If you're in an organisation of size where hiring managers constantly fluctuate, what's a communication strategy? Because it only takes 2 or 3 new members to come on board. They've got their own way of working, and all of a sudden everyone's working to a different script. So the starting point is to make sure that your recruitment processes are clearly defined, clearly communicated. And then in terms of planning any type of recruitment, well, you've got to take it on a case by case. Most organisations have various departments, various roles that sit within it. So what does recruitment look like for each of them? It starts with the requisition of that. So if I'm a hiring manager, I run a team, and I lose a member of staff, for argument's sake, I need to replace them. So what do?
Yeah.
That's the first protocol. So having the right type of requisition process and the right approval channels is a starting point, just to make sure everyone's aware of who we're recruiting for, because that costs money.
Yeah.
So that needs to be approved and signed off. And from there, it's, okay, so if we are going to go ahead and recruit this person, what's the plan? What type of person do we need? What's the skill set? How are we going to score? How are we going to do all these different things? So planning is probably one of the biggest parts and also the biggest failings of many organisations.
Because you mentioned hiring managers. So there's a big debate on where should hiring managers get involved with this. And so you think in terms of the planning stage, they should be involved from the offset. Obviously, they've got to be the one raising the requisition. Mm-hmm. But in terms of, the kind of person we're after, would you bring the hiring manager in nice and early?
I think to some degree, yes. I mean, you have most organisations have a recruiter or a recruitment team. They need to take the lead, but who's best positioned to know what type of skills? The hiring manager is the best person. So I think there needs to be, the best type of recruitment is done where people sit around the table, doesn't take long, 5-10 minutes. Right, you've put this through this requisition, you need to recruit, why, what we're looking for, what didn't work with the last person, so on and so forth. Once you've got that, you've got a person specification.
Yeah.
You've got your job description, you know what the job entails, you know what type of person you need, and you're away. I'm not saying that that's going to work with every role.
Yeah.
But certainly for skill-based positions, as a recruiter, you want to be getting about your department as best you can, learning about each department and what works, what doesn't. But you can't be You can't be here, there, and everywhere.
I think communication is probably the main thing there, isn't it? And making sure that, if you have got an in-house recruitment team, are they speaking to hiring managers on a regular basis? Do they understand the role?
Yeah.
You've got to look at things like timescales, that when are we needing this person in? If there's a lot of urgency around it, then, okay, maybe you're not going to have that time to sit down and go, right, who is it we need? What do we need? Then it really helps to, I think, probably rely on, well, what have we done previously?
Yeah, absolutely. You'll look back on what you've done previously all the time. It's like, okay, well, we've recruited for this type of person before. Why is it not working? So you very quickly need to get to the crux of the issue. And it could be anything, in all fairness. Some might just interviewed really well but didn't perform on the day. So then you've got a lucky process. So in hospitality is a good example. They'll do trial days, trial shifts, to make sure that, one, this person is capable of doing the job, and second, it's right for the person.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to waste any more time than they have to. In care, you're often taken around and shown around a little bit, because if you're supporting people, vulnerable people, I couldn't do that. My partner does that as a living.
You've got to think as well, the amount of involvement from, and we're going to talk about onboarding later on, but there's a lot more in that onboarding process than we need to start thinking about DBS checks, etc.
It starts from planning.
Yeah, and that's where you've got to really map out at what stages people are going to need to be involved, different team members. That's where the timescales comes into it. And resources as well, in terms of, we need to go into have to get somebody involved at this stage, later stage. Where are we going to post the role? So we spoke about advertising something we work with as an organisation.
You've got to plan everything. And aside from that as well, it's who's going to be involved. You mentioned resources, but who is going to be involved in the process, and what we talk about workflows a lot in our conversations. So if you're thinking about role type, IT director, for argument's sake, they might have a recruitment journey of their own, whereas a more entry-level based role might go for
completely different.
So it's understanding what journey that this recruitment is going to take on. We're making it sound like that's the most impossible job.
No.
But you get these processes embedded early doors, or if you're reviewing your whole recruitment process, these are things you want to be considering.
Yeah.
And planning is the biggest phase, because actually the other 6 points we're going to come across very much starts with planning.
Yeah, I think just sitting in a room and having a conversation, putting it down on paper just to go, look, here's what we're planning to do. How are we going to go about doing it? So many people don't do that. And that kind of leads us on to the next point, which is analysis.
Yeah.
You need to be able to sit down and go, well, what has worked previously? What hasn't worked previously? Let's sit down and talk about that. And you need to be able to track it all. But looking back and saying, what kind of candidate are we after? Like you said, mapping that out. But how are we going to go about doing this, and how are we going to track whether we've been successful or not?
Yeah, do you know what? Obviously, our ATS technology is built, reports very much underpin everything it does. So we know click of a button where candidates come from for a start, so we know where to post that role. We'd be able to work out the time to hire, work out everything. I think where organisations struggle with analysis is where you can only analyse data.
Yeah. And
where is that data coming from? How much manual intervention is there in there? Can it be trusted? Analysis is only as good as the data that you analyse.
Well, yeah, you've got to make sure you've captured the information correctly, otherwise what you're looking at is completely obscene. This is why we try and move so many people away from just spreadsheets, because how much room for human error is there?
So you're only seeing it your way, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're viewing a spreadsheet based on what you've put in.
Yeah. And don't worry, I've seen some very impressive spreadsheets over my time. I've seen
lots of fields.
Some people have put some stuff together, and I've sit down and had a look at it and gone, "This is incredible. Must have taken you years to develop."
Great formulas.
Yeah, well, it's just full of formulas. But you start thinking, well, what do you do if you're off? And if you decide to leave?
Always the point. Succession planning.
Yeah.
Or future proofing, whatever you want to call it. It's making sure that either the right technology is in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And making sure that it's set up correctly as well. Everyone's trained. Or if you are going to use spreadsheets, or you are going to go down that road, it's making sure that it's not just sat with you.
Yeah.
There needs to be some accountability.
Forums or an open sort of, yeah.
But in terms of analysing, you're analysing what's to come and what's happened previously. Honestly, it does come to data.
Yeah.
You can't. You can analyse your process. You can analyse hiring techniques, interviewing techniques. You can analyse all of that. But if the information isn't to hand, you've got nothing.
Yeah, I think the worst thing as well is we think the end goal here is hire somebody. We hire somebody, mission accomplished. But if you've hired the wrong person, they're going to be gone in 3 months' time and you're back to square one. And the amount of cost and resources involved with that.
Labour turnover is such a big thing for most organisations. And it's just that, you employ someone, it doesn't work out. There's a cost above and beyond their salary.
Yeah.
You don't want to be going through that too many times.
No, absolutely. So you've planned out what you're going to do. You've sat down and analysed, right, this is the kind of person we're after. We're looking for these are the responsibilities. Sat down with the hiring managers and wrote out the job description. The next step now is to go out and find that person. So you need to go, right, where are we posting the role? You go, how are we going to get the right person? Where are those people sat? So how do we go about doing that?
Right. Okay. So the age-old method is job boards, obviously. Now, we know that the likes of Indeed, Total Jobs, Reed, CV Library, LinkedIn probably account for around about 75% of the active candidate base.
Yeah.
So you can't look too far away from there. But actually, is that the best way? Just throwing an advert out there and hoping for the best? Probably not, because that costs money.
Yeah.
I would be starting to think about social media. Social media is a big area, a big untapped area.
Yeah.
And it's where passive candidates sit.
Yeah.
And we've all had it. You log into your LinkedIn and somebody's there trying to poach you. Well, I've had that anyway.
All right. Okay.
But actually, it goes back to employer brand. What do you look like to the wider audience? So throwing an advert out on Indeed is one thing, but if nobody knows you and you're not giving a clear perception of yourself, then it's not going to land well. So go back to basics. Put yourself in the candidate's shoes, and we do this with our own clients. So if I'm a candidate, go and find you first of all. Go and find yourself. Okay, find yourself. Okay, what's the first thing I want to do? I want to have a look at the website. I see the website. I'm not interested in the front end stuff, the suits and the boots. I'm more interested on the back end, the careers page.
Yeah.
I want to know what life would be like to work there. What's your careers page say about you as an employer? And is it true? And are the images, are they stock images? I don't want to see.
It's so easy to tell, and you hit the nail on the head there, because the amount of, I think that's read a stat, something like 80 to 90% of candidates will go and research an organisation before joining them.
Yeah.
Which is what they're likely to do. You mentioned, you've got a lot of passive candidates at the minute. People aren't actively looking for jobs as much as they were.
No.
Unemployment's at a record, record low.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get these people who maybe are open to suggestion. You're trying to open the door. If they go and look at your careers page and it's stock images, there's no information really about what it's like working there. Candidates don't care about how long an organisation's been working for.
Revenue they've earned.
It's not interested to them. So they want to see testimonials. They want to see, well, what's it going to be like for me to work there?
Yeah, I want to see people on there that I'm starting to look at as colleagues, not just people who work there. I want to see benefits. I want to see. But fundamentally, if I want to apply, it should be very easy.
Yes.
How many times have we come across it? You've got this really exciting careers page, but then to apply, I've got to download a Word document or a PDF.
Sign your life away just to,
Can't do that on an iPhone. So that's the starting point. To put yourself in the candidate shoes, how easy is it to apply? And is our employer brand really visible? Is it really coming through? Okay, yes, it is. Big tick. Great. Okay, well, we've posted the job. Now, what does my advert look like? Is it got the right language around it? If your aim is to be a little bit more inclusive, for instance, thinking about hidden gender bias and all that stuff, but there's a lot to consider.
Yeah.
But if your advert's right, your careers page is right, now where you're posting it. Now, if you're recruiting a head chef, you wouldn't go putting that job on LinkedIn, for instance. I mean, you can, and you might grow some, but actually, caterers,
Especially sports. Yeah.
So, do you know where to post jobs? Are you familiar with specific industry job boards? Do you know where to capture the right level of candidate?
This comes back to analysis, because if you're tracking what has previously worked or not worked on your other role, if you've previously hired a head chef before, if you're using the right technology and you tracked it correctly, you can go, well, where did the last time we hired a head chef, where did all the good candidates come from?
When was the last time you benchmarked these roles? And who's your go-to? Anyone that works with us, effectively partner with us. So they've got us to lean on, and we've got 25, 30 years of experience as an organisation. But if you're sat there as a recruiter and you're scratching your head, well, where can you turn at the moment for some advice or looking or sharing some best practice with people? So there's a lots of things. Once that role is out there, and so you have got it on the job boards, it's making sure that the candidates that are coming through, or actually step back, make sure your application process is correct.
Yeah.
Because we know when you post a job on Indeed, you can get them all over the world.
It's one-click application.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you need to ensure that your application form is set in such a way that we try and eliminate as much of that as we can.
So eliminate the questions, get rid of the people.
Yeah, because if you're wasting time with candidates that should never be applying in the first place, you may potentially miss out on the ones.
I bet the majority of people watching or listening to this now, a large portion of their time, if they've got large recruitment volume, is from screening candidates. It's where the majority of their time's taken up.
Yeah, biggest amount of time, isn't it? Because once that's done, you're shortlisted. Your hiring managers then step into interview, and then you're on your path. But that initial getting the job out, getting a load of candidates in, I can imagine that could be quite tiresome at times.
Some organisations are in the fortunate position where they have the facilities, they've got the resource to go out and find their talent, so they can do more than just
headhunting.
They can go and headhunt. Now, one thing that I think, especially with technology, the use of things like a talent pool, if you're paying to post these roles on these job boards and you've got candidates openly applying, just because that candidate was unsuccessful last time, we shouldn't just close the door.
Oh, absolutely not. No, we call them silver medalist candidates.
Yeah.
You've interviewed two top pieces of talent, top people that could both equally do the job and one hit the other.
Yeah.
Something happens, that person has to leave or doesn't start, you should be able to fall back on these people. A talent pool as well, if used correctly by the right people, can also be used as additional advertising. So if I've been for an interview with an organisation, which I haven't done for many years now, but if I did, and that interview process was great, okay, I didn't get the position, but I was happy with
how it went.
If I received an email to say, okay, we're now looking, I might already have a job.
Timing's important.
A year ago, that might have been all right for me. But I'm more inclined to pass that information on to someone that is.
Yeah. The network, I think we talked about LinkedIn before, the network and word of mouth is where, it's free advertising.
Oh, absolutely. And that goes back to employer branding, doesn't it? It doesn't just stop at throwing a few images. It's the whole experience and then the feedback from that. So, talent pool isn't just a case of a place to pen in a load of people. Data is actually, it can be much stronger than that, powerful.
We've spoke about searching for the candidates, and we've briefly moved into step number 4, which is screening. So screening is one of those things that if you've got the time to sit there and go through each candidate, great. If you're doing low recruitment, most people don't. Most people are getting, with the likes of one-click application, a lot of candidates applying for roles where they, to be frank, aren't relevant. They're applying for a role they shouldn't be applying for in the first place. How can we try and mitigate the time we're spending screening people?
Well, technology is key. Depends how much of recruitment you do, in all fairness, but technology, talk about applicant tracking software, obviously it's what we're about, but if you've got 3 or 4 roles live, that's not just 3 or 4 roles, you're now potentially opening up 300 or 400 applicants who all deserve the right to have the same experience, same level of experience, no matter where they're applying from, whether they've applied wrongly, rightly, whatever. And by having the right technology in, these kind of supply, you can automate process.
Yeah.
You can automate rejection, automate approval, or just having things in a central location so that you can have a uniform process. If you don't want to go down that way, then you need to be very slick in your approach. So candidates coming into an inbox, they very quickly need to be acted on.
Yeah.
And should be communicated to within 24 hours.
Yeah, speed, time. I think I read somewhere something like, if you've not got back to a candidate, at least invite them to an interview or a screening call within 2 weeks. Thank God.
But the technology, if I ran my own organisation, I would invest, I think, because if I was growing, and we were growing in size, we had a few roles live, just the ability to throw that job out there, candidates start to roll in quickly, knowing that my system is taking care of the 75% of the work for me in that initial stage. I'm happy with that because I know that candidates are getting a good experience. We look great for what we're doing, but I'm not having to do too much at that stage.
Yeah.
And at that point, what I'm left with is a pen of candidates or a bucket of candidates there.
It's the pot of gold, isn't it?
They're the ones that are going to need to be screened.
It comes down to question as well, because what you don't want to do, by asking the right questions, you're going to be. So let's say you've got a role for a HGV driver. A standard question on your application form should be, well, do you have a UK driver's license or a HGV license?
Absolutely. I mean, if the answer is no, do you want to be spending time? Because really they should never apply. Why are you applying for a role taking the time when you know you don't have a license?
And you might only find that out on a screening call. And it's like you've set time in your day to book the call, you've gone through the CV to find something out. I mean, you'd like to think candidates wouldn't be applying for a role where they categorically don't.
But it happens.
But it happens.
Yeah.
And this is where on the flip, you need to make sure you're asking the right questions, but not too many questions.
No, qualifying questions.
Yeah.
And again, you should be testing these out internally.
Yeah.
If you're in charge of a specific role, great, but just test these questions out first of all, because if there's a question in there that's not needed, great, get rid of it. If there's one needs to be added, but do test.
Because that's a planning as well, though. Plan what your questions are going to be, because if you're asking completely irrelevant questions, I remember I applied for a role at a retailer who shall remain nameless, and. You'd think I was applying to be in the military. It was like, I'm surprised they weren't asking me how long my toes were. And it was just page after page after page for some temporary work over a Christmas sale or something like that. That would put me off applying, especially in today's current climate. So you don't want to ask too many questions. It's a balancing act.
Do you know what? Yeah, and I do a lot of work in public sector, education space specifically, and they have to ask these questions.
Yeah.
So if you're applying for a cleaner position, for argument's sake, or a catering position, or any type of business support position in an education setting, you've still got to go through this level of due diligence. Understandably, these are Ofsted rules, and we're dealing with children at the end of the day. But that can put you off because you're thinking, well, I'm not trying that type of role.
Yeah.
But I think if you educate the candidate early doors, to say, if you apply for the job we want you to apply, we understand that you're going to have to you have to go through this application process, but here's the reason why. I'd be more inclined to do it.
Yeah.
If I understood why I was doing it.
Yeah.
What the reason
I think it's about asking the right questions at the right time as well, because there are some organisations that will try and capture things like reference information. They'll try and capture all this information really early. Could we be asking for that later on if they've been made an offer?
I don't think you need to worry about referencing screening.
No.
Screening stage. I think you don't want to overcomplicate recruitment.
Absolutely.
Speak to someone. Do they fit? Okay. Did they hit my key points of criteria? Yes. Can this person be progressed? Yes. That's it.
Yeah.
Done.
I think, and the fact that we can use technology our technology will give a candidate a score just based on the questions. We can give that you walk into your system and you'll see not only a pot of gold, a pen of good candidates, but you'll see that they've been scored based on the answers they've provided. You automatically know candidates A, C, and F. It
goes one step further. It could be automatically sending out next stages, and So I think it's always going to come back to technology, these types of conversations, because the technology exists and it works very well.
Yeah.
But it's just making sure that we're not overcomplicating the process.
Yeah.
Don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
That's the key takeaway from that.
Now, step 5, engagement. Now, that's something we've already touched on briefly just then in terms of making sure you're reaching out to candidates quickly. So things like that.
Yeah,
but
and educating as well.
It needs to be done throughout the process, not just at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this starts from before they've even applied. And it goes back to like the careers page, the advert copy, the Glassdoor reviews. One quick tip I can give anyone listening to this is with Glassdoor, go and own it, first of all. Mm-hmm. Go and have a look at yourself.
Not enough people do they?
No. There'll be a red button that says, you don't own this. And literally just include it into your induction. Mm. First 2 weeks of training, at the end of that, send that person a link.
How have you found things?
Yeah, ask the right questions. They'll write the review. They'll give you 5 stars because they're in the honeymoon period.
Honeymoon period.
They'll write a review. But what they're writing a review on is the recruitment journey and the onboarding. Mm. And when we talk about onboarding, I mean like the induction.
Yeah.
And that's key. Because you get enough of them, your star rating goes up, but they're all relevant, and you can point candidates in that right direction.
Well, that's the bit they care about. I if I'm joining an organisation, I don't want to see the frustration of a disgruntled employee who left after 5 years.
No.
I want to see the people who've just joined and are going through the experience I'm potentially about to go through.
Yeah, because you'll make your own way in that role. So that's one thing. So all of this stuff comes into play before you even start speaking to the candidate. The application process, educate your candidate. So a little FAQ section or a stepped out process. So a good example is within care. If I'm going to work as a support worker, for example, I don't live behind my emails like we do.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to write about myself or anything of that nature. I just want to apply for the role. Well, where I've seen it work well is where an organisation, it works well in any sector, but I've seen it in care, where they'll step out the process. So step 1 is you're going to fill out this application. Step 2 is we're going to be in touch, and it puts you through the next stages, which is really nice and comforting. Because I know what's coming, I can prepare myself.
Uncertainty is the bit that I think people get so fussed about in the role.
Because I'm not used to applying for a job, or I'm not used to doing that. So really educate your candidate. When they come to complete the application form, make it easy, make it mobile friendly.
Oh yeah,
I mean that should be a given these days. But do ensure that that's the case, and making sure that when I've applied, I get that confirmation email and text immediately.
Yeah.
So I've been acknowledged at least.
Yeah.
So thank you, Matthew, for applying.
Just that acknowledgement, because there's funnily enough, so only 7% of candidates receive a phone call from a recruiter or hiring manager about rejection. So even though it's a rejection, we talk about
it needs to be feedback.
Yeah, the feedback, and also that they're then if they hear absolutely nothing back, they're not going to apply for any future roles.
No, but I also understand that you're not going to be able to speak to everyone.
Absolutely everybody,
But communication is key. Whether you're doing that through technology and it's automated, or whether you're doing
at least an email, automated
just
email.
Acknowledge every single stage so people know where they're up to. What it will also discourage is them having to pick up the phone and call you, which takes time out of your own day as a recruiter, which you certainly don't have time to do. So engagement, it comes from before they've even applied, right the way through, and they should, if they're going to be interviewed, depending on the type of role, if you're doing a lot of work around D&I, then you should be doing panel interviews, and your panel should be diverse. There's lots of things to consider, but again, put yourself in the candidate's shoes and go through the process.
Yeah, how would it feel if I was sat there? Yeah, where would I want to know how well I've done? Where would I want to know what's going on? If there is a delay, just tell us, because things happen, things pop up. Let's say you have to delay interviews for a week or two. If you don't even tell a candidate that, they're sat there worrying, thinking, well, where did I go wrong? What's next, etc. So,
and engagement comes back to time to hire, which we talk about a lot. if things are dragging, I may get poached from down the road.
You're going to be, any candidate who's applying for roles is likely speaking to other organisations.
So you need to be quick off the mark, slick.
Yeah.
Sell them the dream.
Yeah.
But make sure that you deliver it.
Yeah. I think we're going to talk about onboarding in a second, but I think we talk about engagement going all the way through.
Oh.
A call from a hiring manager, little things like that, whoever their manager's going to be before they join, keeping those regular touch, because that gap in between, I've accepted my offer to actually starting, could be a month, could be up to 3 months. So, if you've been sat in a role, it's a senior role for a while, that silence
is getting them involved in,
exactly
in the day-to-day, making them feel part.
And I think it's why some of the organisations that we work with, our onboarding module, onboarding microsites, we talk about how important careers pages are, onboarding microsites start coming into it, because then it's a case of, well, I want to see, what does my day one, week one, month one look like? Where am I going to park on the first day? These are the things that I remember when I first came to my job here, I was thinking, where do I park? Where am I going to go? Little things like that you worry about, and they build up in your head to the point where sometimes it might put people off coming altogether. So
agreed. Clear and concise.
Yeah, absolutely. So 6th stage in the process is selection. So you've mapped out where you're going to apply, where you're going to post all your roles, who your candidates are going to be, who you're looking for. Now you've gone through your pen of good quality candidates. You start looking at who do we select now. We mentioned earlier, it's so important to make sure you pick the right person, because if you don't, and that person leaves after 3, 4, 5, within 6 months, that's been a failure. You've not recruited properly for the role. You have to go back to square one. So where do we now say, okay, let's let the data do the talking? How do we then make the selection? Who should be involved in that process?
Okay. This is tricky, because if it's a high volume role, you're relying on nous and knowing the type of skill set that's going to work in there.
Yeah.
For roles that require a wider skill set or whatever, I would be involving others in the process. I wouldn't just be relying on maybe myself as a recruiter and the hiring manager. I would maybe be looking to involve a few more people to assess the candidates. If your analysis is done properly and your benchmarking is done right and you plan correctly, you'll know how to almost score a candidate based on a set criteria.
Yeah.
And if we're doing that, you can, do you know what? That probably might give you 70% of what you're looking for. The other 30% will come from the conversation. If you're video interviewing, try and get them recorded. Go back and rewatch things, look at people's notes, but involve as many people as you can, the right type of people, of course, without overpopulating it, so that you can have that conversation around these people and think, right, okay, well, we interviewed X, Y, and Z. What are your thoughts? It's
about discussing.
Does that mirror up?
You need to discuss all the candidates as well, but look at the strengths and the weaknesses of each person and sit down and go, right, what do you, because, we all have different opinions of different people, and we can sit there and go, right, well, I thought this was a strength. So one person's strength might be another person's weakness. So it's about sitting down and discussing that in a group. But I think, hiring managers, we spoke about how early did they get involved. Definitely in the planning stage to map out the role. The screening process, they maybe don't need to be too involved. If you've got technology doing a lot of the work for you, it may be a head recruiter, or it may be someone in the HR team who's doing that initial screening. But this is, especially in the interviews and the selection process, the hiring managers need to be having.
Yeah, and don't be scared of getting candidates back in.
Yeah.
If it's down to a few or there's a few more questions to ask, don't be scared to go back and ask those questions.
Yeah.
Because this has to be right for you as an organisation, also right for them.
Right for them, yeah.
So you need to have done all your due diligence on each candidate.
Yeah.
And you know what? Don't be scared to offer someone a job. Don't always be looking for the negatives.
Yeah.
Look at the positives. It's too easy to look at negatives. Oh, yeah, but you said this, or I've got reservations. I'm sorry, but your reservation on someone, if there's no data to back that up or no facts, that is just your opinion.
Yeah. So the final step in the 7 steps, for me, probably one of the most important and often gets left, it doesn't get the attention it deserves, is onboarding. So we've mentioned already there may be a few months in between somebody accepting an offer and actually joining the organisation. A lot can happen in that time. So how do we make sure that we've got a strong onboarding strategy?
Don't wait until you've hired them to start it. Onboarding starts at the point where you've maybe narrowed down a couple of candidates to a point where you'd probably offer either of them. So onboarding starts with things like referencing. That's a starting point. The right to work check is part of onboarding. DBS check, contracts.
It depends on the organisation.
All this stuff.
There's a lot to happen.
Into play. Also, when you have hired that person, just ensuring that IT have got that email so that you set them up on the systems. Uniforms been ordered. There's a process. Most organisations know what it is. This is all great internally, but is the candidate fully aware of what's going on at any given time? So a really good onboarding experience should really be about the person that's about to join, making them feel loved and wanted. And we can't wait to have you on board.
It gets them off to the best start. I mean, the interesting stat here: employee retention is improved by 82% following a solid onboarding process. That's from Glassdoor.
If you get that wrong, I mean, I've been fortunate. I've always had really good, strong onboarding experiences anywhere that I've been. But I can imagine if it was really poor, we're going to offer you the job, you start on this date, just come to this building. Anyway, nothing in between. And when you start, there's no real training. You kind of scratch around, figure out what to do. It's not great. It's not a great start. And you question everything. Have I made the right move?
Plants the seed of worry in your head of have I made the right decision? Is this the right thing for me?
And we're off to a bad start. So I think, yes, make sure that you know what you need to do internally to get this person through the door. But think about the candidate. They've been offered the position. They're buzzing. How do you keep them there before they start to roll down?
I think it's important as well not to overload them with information. So drip feed this through over a period of time. Because if you give everything at once, it can be quite overwhelming. But also, then what do you do for if you perform your reference checks, your DBS checks,
all in
your
one go,
contracts in one go? What do you do for the rest of the drip feed it?
And making it easy for them to complete this stuff as well. Back in the day, you'd have to go in physically show. You don't have to do that anymore. Technology exists and should be utilised.
A little video call with your manager before you meet them on the first day.
Absolutely.
Little things, even if it's just a 10-minute hello, I'm going to be your manager, really looking forward to working with you. Something like that, if they haven't been involved in the process already. That would if I was a new starter, that would put my mind at rest, because that's probably one of the most nerve-wracking parts of starting. Who's my manager? Am I going to get on with them? Am I going to get on with my team?
Yeah, and you know what? It's more important, and there is a lot more pressure on recruiters these days, on organisations to get this right, because of things like Amazon. You can order something on your phone. It arrives within 24 hours in most cases. So you're used to this, fast, quick, great experience in everything that you're doing. So now companies need to, obviously there's a lot more that goes into employing someone, but that's the culture, one-click culture. And great experience and won't accept anything less. So if you're applying for a role, you want the very best experience because that's what you're used to.
There's a lot of moving parts to recruitment, and I think to summarise, to go right back to where we started with this stage one planning. If you map everything out right and you've sat down and gone, well, how are we going to? If you map out each of these stages, you go right. First of all, we're going to plan it. Then we're going to look at our analysis of our candidates, who we're looking for. We're going to go out there, post on these job boards, look for this type of candidate, find them, engage with them, onboard them properly. As long as that's all done correctly.
There's an argument, isn't there, to say if you get step one done, the other 6 steps take care of itself.
Absolutely. So I think we've got, a lot of people who have sat here on this call today kind of thinking, well, what am I going to do next? I think planning for me is the first place to start. To think about, because a lot of people will not actually sit down and just spend time going over it.
I think actually, if you're watching this, go away and look at everything that we've discussed today. Put yourself in the candidate's shoes. And look at your own recruitment process. Are you happy with it? What would you change? Think about the steps that we've been through. Think about what's missing. Think about what you're doing too much of. Self-critique, self-consult. think about your technology, of course.
Yeah.
But if you're comfortable and the feedback's right, and you're getting that feedback from candidates that go through the process, and it's all great, and your retention's good, happy days.
Yeah.
But if it's not, think about those levers and pull on the right ones.
Yeah. And so, to wrap up, I think, first of all, thank you to those of you watching, listening. This is the first, of one of these social sit-downs that we've done. So, we're really keen for feedback. Pop in the comments what you'd like to see us do in the future. We're going to have some more up and coming. We want to hear from, the recruiters out there, the HR, colleagues out there who are going to be doing this firsthand. We'd love to get feedback, find out what's working for you, what's not working for you. You can reach out to myself. You can reach out to Matt. And it's what we do here at Talos. We're here to help at the end of the day. So thank you very much, Matt, for your time.
It's been my pleasure.
And we'll see you again on the next one. Take care.